It's a new era in Fresno State football. Matt Entz takes over for a team that's had a lot of success over the last handful of years, and things are going to look different, whether that's the scheme or the coaching staff or some of the players. This is a program that will look different than it did before. We're taking a deep dive into the Fresno State Bulldogs to see what we should expect from this team in 2025. 2024 was kind of disappointing for Fresno State. There's been a lot of things that happened in the offseason before last year, but a 6-7 finish was something that not anybody really expected. I think that they expected better things from this team last year, and we saw a number of factors that made it so that it didn't happen. But at the same time, this is still a team with a ton of promise. I think that Matt Entz taking over was an interesting hire, but it's one that I think is welcomed with open arms. Now you look at what has changed. The coaching staff obviously has changed, and there were plenty of departures as well. You lose two of your top receivers in Max Molina, Jalen Moss. You also see Raylan Sharp exit. Moss goes to Arizona State. Sharp goes to Arkansas. You lose a couple of offensive linemen that were extremely valuable. You lose your quarterback in Mikey Keene. Malik Sherrod goes to Boise State. You lose some defensive players that were solid as well to the transfer portal, and you lose some to graduation and the NFL draft. I think Dean Clark and Cam Lockridge in the secondary will definitely hurt, but I'd still like what this secondary has to offer in 2025. In terms of transfers coming in, with a new coaching staff comes transfer portal talent. You bring in certain players that this staff really likes, and we'll see if they're able to connect right away. The quarterback position saw two guys come in, EJ Warner, Carson Conklin. You see a couple wide receivers come in. Jaleel McClain from Louisville is one they really like. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you do bring in multiple guys that should be able to start right away. Martin Owusu could be one of those guys. You also bring in Jaden Pearson, Kavion Thunderbird at the linebacker position. So you do have some names coming in that could be really exciting and just gives you a fresh face to potentially take over at one of those positions. Now, Mikey Keene's departure has mixed reactions. I think that the Fresno State fan base wished that things went better here, but ultimately there were some good things and there were some not so good things. So you have a new era. EJ Warner is going to take over. Now, EJ Warner has the ability to be a big time quarterback. He has the arm talent, he has the ability. And it'll be fun to see what he does in this offense. Comes in from Rice, threw for 2,700 yards last year, 17 touchdowns, which is solid, but 13 interceptions is not great. You want to see him obviously fix those. Pushing him for starting time is going to be Carson Conklin. Sacramento State's quarterback threw for 2,800 yards last year, 28 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And honestly, Fresno State's just looking for stability at quarterback, so they don't care which one of them is the guy. Warner should be the guy. I think that he has the most talent of anybody in that room. It's just going to be a matter of how does he handle this new system? Can he learn it quick enough? And can he get his playmakers the ball and in good positions? I think he has the talent to do that. If you're able to put up those kinds of numbers at Rice, where it's really difficult to win, I can only imagine what you're going to do in a system where you have more talent and an offense that should be a little bit easier to get the ball to your playmakers and let them do work. The passing attack, it will be interesting to see how this looks. Again, with what you saw from Matt Entz at his time at NDSU, it wasn't like they were an air raid offense by any means, but we'll see if this is going to look like it did at NDSU. There are some things that will be like that, but will look exactly like that. Now, one thing that needs to be strong if you're Fresno State under Matt Entz is running the football, and they return a quality group of running backs. You also bring in some talent from the transfer portal. Bryson Donaldson will probably be the first guy that gets most of the touches. 462 yards last year, 3 touchdowns. Elijah Gilliam did enter transfer portal, but did come back. 466 yards for him, 203 yards through the air as well as a receiver. So that's a solid group to have already. In addition to that, you'll have Rayshawn Luke, Jonathan Arsenault. You'll have a 4-man rotation that will be part of that. We'll see who ends up solidifying themselves as RB1, but overall, you should feel pretty good about the options that you have. You maybe don't have that alpha as RB1, but you do have a group of running backs that should give you some fresh legs. You should be able to rotate guys in, and it'll just come down to who do those top two guys end up being, who separates themselves from the rest of the group. So this is a new era for everyone. There's some new faces that are coming in, but you also have some familiar faces that will be able to continue the success and give fans some familiarity with the guys that are returning. So if you're Fresno State, you got to figure out what the quarterback position is, but you at least feel pretty good about the running back position in terms of stability. Now, you do want to see this group improve. Last year, they finished 124th in rushing offense. That's not going to get the job done. And honestly, when you look at what Matt Entz did at NDSU, that's unacceptable. Not being able to run the football is not going to be something that they're okay with. Even if they do throw the ball quite a bit, they still want to run the football. They want to play complementary football, and they want to make sure that they are getting things done on the ground. It might take some time to get to that point, especially with what we've seen from Fresno State over the last couple of years. This has been a team that has leaned on its quarterbacks and its passing attack a little bit more than the rushing attack. So it might be a little bit of time before they get to that. Not saying that they haven't had good running backs. They've had some really fun running backs. I mean, Malik Sherrod was solid. You look at the Ronnie Rivers days, those feel like forever ago, but those are guys that were solid as running backs. And I think you can get that back to that point, and Entz is going to bring that kind of culture to Fresno State. The passing attack, though, will still be part of that. Now, quarterback position is going to have to sort itself out, but these wide receivers will have to find chemistry with this quarterback group, whether it's Warner, whether it's Conklin, whoever it is. They need to find chemistry with their quarterbacks, and they also need to prove that they can get open. It is pretty much wide open for guys to take over. Now, we talked about Jalil McClain coming in from Louisville last year. He only played in 5 games, didn't have any production, so we're going to wait and see what we get from him. Josiah Freeman returns. Didn't have a ton of production as well. 8 catches, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. A JUCO transfer in Jayan Farrar had a solid year last year. He is someone that could step into the mix. You also have some young players that could make a big impact. Jordan Malaoulu is a redshirt freshman that is going to push for starting time. That's a guy who's solidifying himself in the mix. He has been a solid player in the spring. He's a big-time contributor, and I think that they are just waiting to unleash him in the fall. Hara Duval is a freshman that could also participate. We'll see if he's ready to take that step right off the bat. Jordan Brown and Josiah Aon, another transfer, could be part of that as well. So you have some relatively unknown pieces at the wide receiver position, and with a quarterback that's new, whether it's Conklin or Warner, it might take some time for everybody to get used to each other. It's also going to show you that you have a lot of names that start with J, but you also have guys that are incredibly competitive and are looking to prove their worth. The guys you bring in outside of McClain come from places that are either they didn't get a ton of opportunities or they were just under recruited. So those are guys who are hungry to prove themselves at this level. And the Mountain West is kind of wide open right now. Obviously, Boise State is the favorite, but there are a number of teams that could challenge this year, challenge that team, and challenge for a conference title. I don't know if Fresno State's going to be there. We'll dive into the schedule later, but this is a team that could get back to its winning ways if Entz can just replicate what he did at NDSU. Now, the one thing that might be a little bit different for Fresno State, you're going to see multiple tight end sets. I think that this is something that it's kind of the blend of Entz's time at NDSU with the new era of college football. You're going to see some multiple tight end sets for Fresno State, which seems really weird. And it's not going to be out wide. You're going to have them hand in the turf. Maybe you're going to have them on the same side. It'll be fun to see what kind of new looks they can give. And teams are going to have to account for that. And when you look at the tight end talent they have, it's not the most productive, but you do have potential. You have a guy in Richie Anderson that had caught 18 passes last year for 147 yards. Cameron Beecham is another guy, caught 9 passes for 90 yards. Outside of that, you don't have a ton of production, but you really like the pieces you have. Jake Tarwater is another guy that could be in this rotation, could be the starter. Brock Liam and Jace Nixon are two other guys to keep an eye on. So it's going to look different. It's going to be fun, though. I think that overall, this is a really fun team, even with the talent that they lose. It, again, might take some time for them to get things sorted out. It might be a rebuilding year. But at the same time, we don't necessarily know. Entz is a proven winner as a head coach at NDSU. He goes to USC to coach linebackers, and now he comes and takes over a Fresno State team that is going to look a little bit different. The offensive line is going to have its transition as well, though they do get Jacob Spomer back. Somehow he is still in college football, but that's great for Fresno State. You get your center back. You get a guy who has played multiple positions. He's played a ton of time at this program, and he is a leader that can get some of these guys who are newer up to speed quick. On the left tackle position, the two tackle positions, I should say, Torian Penwright and Roland Fullwood are going to be your bookends there. Those are two solid pieces. Penwright started 11 games last year, played in 12. So you're feeling pretty good about the tackle and the guard positions if you're Fresno State. Fullwood will be really interesting. 6'6", 315 pounds. The guard positions are kind of up in the air. You do bring in Gino Quinones from USC, played in 25 games with 3 starts, but only played in 3 games last year. Now, who plays behind them is probably the biggest question. You do have some experience. So Marcus Simeon could be a guy that starts. You could see Edward Fonua play at one of the guard positions as well. Julian Polendo is someone who could play guard or center. Campbell McHarg also has good experience. So on the interior, you're going to have some competition. You will have some quality competition. You'll have guys pushing for time. The tackle positions are relatively inexperienced behind Penwright and Fullwood, so you don't necessarily feel as comfortable with those, but you do bring in some talent, whether that's the recruiting class or the transfer portal, that you feel like it has at least the potential to be successful. It's just a matter of getting them that experience. So overall, this is a group that might look a little bit different too because of what they're asked to do. This might be more of a physical group. They might have to run the football more, and that's going to require this group to do a little bit more run blocking than they've done in the past. And how they transition to that will be a big question. But this coaching staff should make the correct adjustments to get everybody on the same page, to get this group transitioned to being more of a rush offense than they were in the past. If you're worried about the offense and the turnover and the transition, that's understandable. I think the one thing you can hang your hat on for this team is that the defense under Matt Entz is going to be solid right off the bat. And the defensive line is going to probably be a huge reason why. You somehow kept Corey Foreman after a solid year from him in 2024. 24 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. The former number 1 overall recruit chose Fresno State over probably a lot of teams, and he has been a solid player when he's been on the field. Now, keeping him healthy for an entire year will be the biggest thing, but if he is on the field, he is an absolute monster for teams to stop. He has the size, he has the power, the athleticism to make life miserable for any tackle that he faces. Opposite of him is a guy who's getting a huge opportunity in Jason Jacks. 21 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. He is going to get a lot of really interesting matchups because Corey Foreman is going to command most of that attention. Teams are worried about what Foreman can do, which opens things up for Jacks and these other defensive ends. Now, the depth behind them is intriguing. Sione Noah had 16 tackles last year, 3 tackles for loss. You bring in Finn Claypool from Drake. He had a monster year for the Bulldogs in 2024. 45 tackles, 17 and a half tackles for loss, 10 sacks. The depth behind them is maybe where you feel like it falls off a little bit, but your top 4 guys are in a great position to have a ton of success. The interior defensive line is a little bit uncertain at this point. You don't have a ton of production. Martin Owusu comes in from Minnesota, only had 1 tackle with the Golden Gophers. Dejan Lafitte is going to be another guy to keep an eye on. Again, not a ton of production. Behind them, you don't have better options in terms of production. Auckland Asiata had 6 tackles last year, 2 tackles for loss. The best production of any of the 4 guys we're going to talk about here. Ezra Christensen, 2 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack. So this is a group that will have to get up to speed, but I do like the talent in this group, and the defensive end position will command a lot of the attention. So the defensive tackles have time to get things sorted out and get to where they need to be. If they play really well right off the bat, you feel pretty good about what this defense can do in 2025. And it also helps the good guys behind it. The linebacker position is going to have some new faces. You bring in Jaden Pearson, a productive player for Utah State. He is someone who is familiar with this conference. He knows what to expect from a lot of these teams. And he, even though is a new face to this defense, he is a valuable resource to help guys get into place, get into position to make plays. Kavion Thunderbird comes in from Arizona State, looking to take a step in his production. Behind them, Tim Thomas had 7 tackles last year. Logan Studd is going to be a redshirt freshman that could take a big step forward in 2025. Behind them, though, is where you don't have a ton of production, a ton of experience. Justin Johnson, Titus Kajavi, those are guys are going to have a little bit of a tough time getting acclimated to a new system, to their new roles. But you do have some experienced players in Pearson, in Thunderbird that can get everybody up to speed. And this is a group that's going to learn together. This is a group that is going through a transition. And the future of this program, I think, is bright. You bring a proven winner in Matt Entz from his time at NDSU, and he's going to bring that culture to Fresno State. And we'll see how quickly he can get them turned around. The secondary almost lost everybody. You lose Cam Lockridge and Dean Clark, like we talked about before. You lose Julian Neal, Justin Houston. You almost lost Elzillian Hamilton, who did enter the transfer portal. He had a big year for the Fresno State Bulldogs last year. 52 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 13 passes defended, and 2 interceptions. He was an honorable mention All Mountain West selection in 2024. You also return Cameron Braca. That's an underrated returnee for this team. 19 tackles last year, 3 passes defended, 1 interception. The other positions are going to be really green, really new. Now there's going to be competition. R.L. Miller and Jane Davis will compete for the other starting safety spot. Jamarian Briggs and Jakari Embry will compete for the other cornerback spot. And they have various levels of experience. So you have guys who are familiar with this defense. They just are looking to take on a bigger role in 2025. Simeon Harris comes in from Utah State. Andre Cobb from Northern Illinois. Those are 2 guys that will compete for the nickel spot. And that'll be in an important position for this team as well. When you look at what Justin Houston did for this team, you look at a special position that can have a major impact, and you just have some new guys that are going to be playing that. So the secondary does have some nice pieces overall. I think that you should feel pretty good about this group as a whole. The safety and cornerback positions opposite of Braca and Hamilton are the ones you want to keep an eye on. Now, Jaden Davis had 51 tackles last year. Jakari Embry had 37. So those are 2 guys that could be the starters, but Miller and Briggs are going to push them for time, which will be interesting to watch. Competition is good, and especially when you have a new coaching staff, it is going to require guys to potentially take on new roles and accept that things may not just be a given. You may not be the starter. Even Hamilton and Braca in that secondary are going to be pushed to be better. They are going to be pushed for their spots to a certain degree. I think eventually they're going to show that, hey, these are our best options at these respective positions, but nobody is going to be given any special treatment. Matt Entz knows what it takes to win, and it's not by giving some of his guys special treatment. He wants to get this program back on track, and he's not going to do that by being just nice and everybody's best friend. Winning football games will be a challenge, especially early on. This is a tough way to start the Matt Entz era, but Fresno State has pulled off some interesting upsets in the past. The travel to Kansas in week 0 is not ideal. That's a Kansas team that has a dangerous quarterback in Jalen Daniels. But I tell you what, if Jason Jackson, Corey Foreman have their way, that is a very interesting matchup. I think Kansas' offensive line is going through a transition, and guys like Foreman and Jax could have monster games that change the trajectory of this team in week 0. Then you host Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern is going to be a team that tests you defensively. They have a really good group on offense. They also have a really underrated defense. So that's a team that could provide a ton of challenges for you as well. Then you go to Oregon State. That is a tough road trip. So you have 2 tough road trips to start the year. Again, if this was a team of the past, I'd feel really good about what they could do in those first 3 games. A 3-0 start would be possible. Now I'm looking at 1, unless they surprise us, 1, maybe 2. That's really where this thing could get off to a little bit worse start than maybe you expect. Now, you probably can win all 3 of those games, but it's going to take a lot of guys stepping up quicker than expected. The game against Southern at worst gives you your first win of the season before you head to Hawaii. And by then you have played 5 games before almost the halfway point of September. You are at September 20th when you play Hawaii, and man, that's just a real rough start. You do get a bye week though. Nevada and Colorado State are next to start October. You get another bye week, one of the second of 3, I should say. You host San Diego State. That's a team that is looking to be better in 2025. And then you go to Boise State. That is a tough trip. Even without Ashton Genty, Boise State is going to be an absolute nightmare to stop this year. They return a ton of talent, and they are going to be, once again, the favorites in the Mountain West. Your final bye week comes November 8th. You finish the year with some intriguing matchups. Wyoming and Utah State are hoping to be better with their performance in 2025. We're going to know if that's possible by this point. And then a road trip to San Jose State. So winning football games won't exactly be the easiest if you're Fresno State, but if you're able to exceed expectations and be better than where you expect to be at the beginning of the year, then maybe they do surprise some people. But I do think this is a transition year. It doesn't mean I'm not excited about this team. This is one of my favorite teams to follow in college football. I think a lot of people sleep on this team overall, but it might take some time to get back to that point. I do trust what Matt Entz can do. I'm excited to see what he can do at the FBS level and within the Mountain West. Like I said, the Mountain West is about as wide open as it's ever been, and there are multiple teams that can be a factor in that race. Now, if Fresno State is able to get there or not remains the question, but this is a team that's going to need some time, but you should trust the trajectory of this team based off the coaching staff, the head coach that comes in. It'll be a fun team to watch, a fun team to follow this year, just to see how things work out. If EJ Warner truly is the real deal, then maybe this team is better than we expect. There's a lot of unknown with the passing attack, a lot of unknown with the offense, and there's a lot of new faces contributing on both sides of the ball. If they're able to have a strong start and surprise some people when they face Kansas, Georgia Southern, and Oregon State, then you feel pretty good about what 2025 can be. But again, with the Mountain West being so wide open, you have so many teams that could be really competitive against each other, and it'll be interesting to see how they all handle that. Fresno State is one of those teams, and I think it'll only be a matter of time before they get back on track, whether it's this year or in the years coming.